Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, another day of twists and surprises on the French presidential campaign trail. And we're talking about it with Bruno Cotres, a researcher at the CEVIPOF, which is the polling wing of the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po. We're also with Charles Becbédé, former Paris city councillor, who is a supporter of conservative candidate François Fillon in the upcoming presidential election. Majid Messaouden, a city councillor for the Front de Gauche in the French northern suburb of Saint-Denis. And also with us is journalist Stéphane de Vries, correspondent for Dutch radio RTL4, and the co-host of the So French Politics podcast. We were talking before the break about what it means to be French, tapping into whether or not the identity or the ethics issue would top the headlines. Well, Marine Le Pen, on a trip to Lebanon this week, where she refused to wear the veil before a curtailed audience with the Grand Mufti. Organizers insist they had briefed her protocol beforehand. Meanwhile, back in Paris, police were raiding her headquarters. Her bodyguard and chief of staff have been in questioning all day this Wednesday in connection with the European Parliament's decision to dock Le Pen 300,000 euros in pay. They'd been put on her payroll as European staff members. For Le Pen, the explanation is very simple. It's all a plot.
The French know exactly the difference between business and political conspiracies. They know the difference. Despite everything you try, they know very well how to make a difference.
Bruno Cotres, you confirmed to us what you said in part one, that at the end of the day, this isn't going to change much, this scandal. This is just her core supporters will support her come what may.
I don't think it's going to damage that much Marine Le Pen, because
even if she's placed under formal investigation?
Yes, but the core set of the Marine Le Pen voters, they are persuaded that there is a conspiracy against the Front National, against Marine Le Pen, and also it comes from the EU. It comes from the European Parliament. And obviously these voters believe that the European Parliament and the European Union is doing anything they can to avoid Marine Le Pen to become the next French president. It's not exactly the same case as François Fillon, because in the case of François Fillon, it goes directly to the main point of the François Fillon program, which is drastically reduce public deficits, asking for sacrifices in the public sector in particular, and that was public money. So it's not exactly the same story in the two cases, but for Marine Le Pen, I think that the support of Marine Le Pen is quite stable. It's sociologically based, and so I don't think that the popular classes, the working class, the poor workers that are so much support of Marine Le Pen will pay attention that much.
Us versus them, they're trying to get us. Stéphane de Vries, what are your thoughts? It's the first time we're going to see the candidates debate before the first round. Normally it's just the two runoff candidates who square off against one another. Is this going to be good or bad for Le Pen, or it won't make a difference either way?
I think I agree. It doesn't really make a difference for Marine Le Pen, because her voters have already decided. They are very loyal to her, and she has still the advantage of being somebody who has never held office in France. At least she has been a member of the European Parliament for many years, but that doesn't really count in French politics. So she has the aura of someone new, which of course it's strange, because she's part of basically a family business, of a political family business. Her father was elected in 1956, if I don't mistaken. You weren't even born there, François.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
That's a very long time ago, way back in the 20th century. So she's part of this dynasty. She's not, she says, I'm not the system. Basically, she represents everything that's wrong with the French political system. Politics being a family business where people are in politics far too long. But somehow it doesn't stick on her. She can get away with it, and her voters are extremely loyal. And she appeals to many people, even people who didn't, they were afraid to admit that one day they would vote Front National. That has completely changed. People are proud now of voting Front National, and that's all to her credit.
Majid Messaouden, we're seeing in Britain that as the Labour Party loses votes, working class left-wing people are turning to UKIP in many places. Is it the same where you are, that the National Front is picking off the votes that used to go to the communists, for instance?
Well, locally, no. But nationally, yeah, we noticed that. We noticed that the workers vote in a massive way for the National Front. But we are responsible for that too, because they don't find answers and they don't trust us anymore. But for me, it's not just a vote. When you vote National Front, you also vote for a racist party. And you can't also say that I'm angry, so I vote National Front. You have to be responsible for what you do. And when you vote for a racist party, you have to be aware of that. And I just want to come back on the Lebanon affair, which is not an affair, because she knew.
Refusing to wear the veil before
she
the
knew
mufti.
before going there.
Yeah.
You have to respect the rules of the countries. She's the first to ask us that. So, and I think that doing that, she wants to make a buzz, to make us forget what happened to her affair with the European Parliament. I think it's connected.
While Marine Le Pen was in Lebanon, Emmanuel Macron was also getting foreign photo ops. Tuesday, the British Prime Minister welcomed the 39-year-old former economy minister to Downing Street ahead of a rally for the French abroad, where Macron connected the dots between what's happening on both sides of the Channel and both sides of the Atlantic.
While it's not my place to judge the decisions of the British people, why did they make a choice which I so firmly believe was against their own interest? Because the middle class lacked perspective. They had a moment of doubt. How could Trump, Mr. Trump, have gotten elected? Because the middle class said, all this isn't made for us anymore. Why are populists on the rise? Why is the National Front on the rise in France? Because the middle class and the working class, which we must listen to, are saying, this is a world in which we no longer have a place. And so, if we don't recreate a system of protection, pulling together common interests and cohesion, we may love liberty, but we'll only end up losing it.
Bruno Cotres, everybody's trying to address this issue of why, by the way, it's not just working class people, it's also middle class people are afraid of the dizzying pace of globalization, are feeling, as we started to talk about earlier, of a sort of a loss of identity of what it means to be French, of what it means to live in France.
I think it's not only in France. You can see that all over Europe, in the Netherlands, you can see that in other countries also. It's basically speaking that quite large segments of the population get the feeling of abandonment, that they have been abandoned in the middle of the road a long time ago. For France, it happened in the beginnings of the 90s, which is exactly at the same time as we ratified the Maastricht Treaty, and exactly at the same time you could see that it started to be the story of Jean-Marie Le Pen. Jean-Marie Le Pen get 15 in the 95 presidential election. In 88, he got 14.5. So already it was there. So since the end of the 80s, the middle of the 90s, something happened in our countries, and for France, surely, which is fierce toward this global world. That obviously immediately for France raised the issue: what is the future for the so-called French social model? It's much more than in France that identity, because the vast majority of the French believe that they are at the same time French and European, which is still the dominant answer when we ask the question in polls in France. So it's mostly the question of what have we lost with globalization, where do we go, and the feeling that the political class doesn't explain, they don't have the answer, they don't know where to go. They used to know where they were going because of economic growth, but economic growth is no longer there. So where are we going? It's mostly about that.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's about globalization, but it's the effect of globalization on some territories that has been disastrous on an economic point of view. So unemployment and firms closing down. It's also an effect of globalization due to the dismantle of frontiers and so migrations and lack of security. And we have seen that France has had to face terrorist attacks, and we know that some of them were linked to this opening of frontiers.
Don't link terrorism to immigrants.
frontiers. I would say a lack of frontiers, but because unfortunately we don't have frontiers at the European Union side. So the problem is that we have done Schengen without thinking that we should have frontiers for the European Union. So a little detail. So now we are totally open. So that has some consequences, but more importantly, I think it's also globalization on a cultural point of view. There is, and this is true in the UK, in the Netherlands, but also in the USA. And the last month, the last elections, shows that there is a kind of a wave in the Western world for to get out of the confusion of multiculturalism. We are the Western world is, of course, diverse. It's multi-religious. It's multi-ethnic. But it's not multicultural. And this is the case for France, at least, and this is why we see
France has these rules where you're assimilated under the eyes of the Republic,
exactly.
And you're not supposed to talk about people's race or
there is one
or
culture. We have France is a 16th century culture. It's history, language, and it's one culture. Yes.
Is there one culture?
That's
one culture.
That's the law, but it's
French and Algerian. I have almost two.
No. Each of us, of course, we are multicultural.
Oh, of course. So France is
but France is one culture. It's not. It's not Canada. Sorry.
It's completely artificial, your French culture, because only over a century ago, only a quarter of the French spoke French. So it's completely artificial. It's an obsession. And I really don't agree with the fact that you can disagree, but the facts are the facts. The globalization is being blamed a lot, especially in France, because the French are the people who are the most afraid of all the industrialized countries of globalization, which is completely strange because a lot of French companies are the market leaders in the world, and France profits a lot from international trade.
It's not just that. The unemployment rate is high. It's a little under 10% right now, but it's been high before
for
previous
30
times.
years. And
the economy's not doing well, but we've had recessions before. This isn't the Great Depression.
And to give you a counterexample, the Netherlands, where there are elections in 3 weeks from today, it's the most globalized country in the world. There's very little unemployment. People are very rich, and it's the wealth is very well spread, much more evenly so than here in France. Yet the populism is as high as in France, about 20%, 25%. Well-educated people are voting as well. That's a big difference with like 10 years ago. And it has not only to do with globalization. I think in general, people don't know really anymore what is their place in the world. And we don't have any leaders who tell you, who give the example, or leaders simply who lead. Nowadays, politicians listen to the people. I think that's the wrong kind of politics. I think politicians should lead the way, and then they will have followers or not. But nowadays, politics have become marketing. There's a total lack of ideas, and
no vision.
And no vision. And I think people are just fed up with that. You know, it's empty, and people see that, and then they think, well, I'll just go for the worst alternative, be it Brexit, Trump.
Sometimes they give one vision and don't respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's kind of like après moi le déluge. That's the whole sentiment.
Bruno Cotresse, what kind of president do the French want?
I think that the very first issue will be they want someone who is going to do what he said. And it has been in the primary of the right. It has been one of the strong points of François Fillon, which is to communicate quite a lot on, I'm going to tell you the truth and I will do it. Okay, so it's going to be because we've got two consecutive mandate, Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande, that left their electorate extremely disillusioned. Nicolas Sarkozy, when he left in 2012, there was a lot of disillusion inside the right, exactly the same as for François Hollande.
Yeah, Fillon, who campaigned as a left-winger, but then governed as a social democrat.
Oh, that would be, for the right-wing electorate, that would be an absolute disaster if they see François Fillon would finally go to the center and would saying, well, I cannot do what I said. So yes, it would be an absolute disaster, and it would probably promote Marine Le Pen again.
France's political establishment has been rocked, as we've been saying throughout the show, to the core. The kind of change, it's only been seen twice since World War II, after the May 68 strikes and way back in 1958, when the impending loss of France's colonial empire, in particular the Algerian War, brought the country to the brink of civil war before Charles de Gaulle returned from the political wilderness to found a new constitution, tailor-made for himself, really, that featured a very strong presidency. And is there the feeling when you that this is the kind of election that is going to change the political landscape, like 1958 or the election of 1969? And secondly, is it a strong president that the French still want?
If Emmanuel Macron would win the election, that would be quite a radical change, because you cannot get Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée without quite a significant change in the party system. En Marche is not a political party on today. So probably something would happen if Emmanuel Macron would win the election. You need to do something to the voting system, to the party system. Probably it would have consequences on the socialists, but maybe a little bit also on les Républicains. So I think that if Emmanuel Macron wins the election, it will be obviously a sign that the Fifth Republic is in a new step. Marine Le Pen victory would be exactly the same. So yes, we can see that that particular election is quite an important one, because if François Fillon wins or if Benoît Hamon wins, it will restart like business as usual, which is the dominant party is the party of the president. There is a majority in the chambers.
And maybe people don't want that
François Fillon can succeed then and implement
exactly.
the famous reforms.
Yes.
France is waiting for now 40 years
to be too.
So if he succeeds, it's fine. But
we can feel that something is there. Something is there in that election. You can see that a generation of politicians is withdrawing. On today, Claude Barthelone, the president of the National Assembly, just said that he will step down. We've got previously Jean-Marc Ayrault, the former prime minister. So we have clear indications.
On Tuesday, he said he's quitting politics.
It's an old generation. They are not so old, by the way, but an old generation is progressively going out.
But I think Claude Barthelone is escaping the boat because the first time he was elected, I was 5 years old. So I think that it's time to leave. But I think I agree with you. Many people want to get rid of that system, of that what we call the two-party system, with the Socialist Party and the right wing. They want to get rid of that, even either voting for Marine Le Pen or for Emmanuel Macron. And I think that they really want to a new change. And I think that
one of the conditions, by the way, of François Bayrou's endorsement of Emmanuel Macron said, "I want a proportional representation back in the French Parliament."
It's fair. It's normal that all the political parties should be represented in the Parliament, and it's not the case now. And if we have, for example, 50 or 100 MPs from the National Front, it just means that we deserve that. It just means that all the politicians since 30 years have done everything to get to this point.
Yeah, it's clear that there was a kind of a taboo about proportionality in the national elections due to the fact that at the end of the Fourth Republic, it was a kind of
but there was 25 governments in 12 years.
Yeah, so and so the fifth constitution totally changed that. But I think looking at the Netherlands, looking at many democracies in Europe, it's maybe time for France to have a little bit more proportionality, frankly.
Let's turn here to the non-Frenchmen in the room. How much has France changed over the last 5 years?
Oh, a lot. I've been living here for almost 20 years, and that's why I don't really agree with the French identity. I've seen this country change so much in only 20 years. I came here for the first time over 30 years, and then at that time, France was a very exotic country, because coming from the Netherlands, it's only 300 kilometers from here where I was born. But it was a total different world. This is completely gone. The countries, they have a lot of things in common. Of course, the internet makes distances much shorter or basically disappear. If you go into a store or in a street anywhere, a shopping street in any city in Europe, you will find the same stores. So this identity has been changing. The country has been changing. There is a big difference, though, with France and the Netherlands, and maybe also with Germany and other.
Everyone wants to spell out their differences because the world is all becoming the same.
Maybe that could be an explanation. But still, if you take, for instance, the Netherlands, I mean, the French are very proud of French, the language, the French language. They think it's going to disappear. Well, in 20 years from now, French will be the world's largest language, probably, because in Africa, most of the people will speak French. But of course, it doesn't count because that's Africa. So the French are very afraid that French is... But so they impose very strict rules on the use of language. All this is due to a lack of self-esteem. If you look at the Netherlands, there's no law on using Dutch, or even in Sweden or in Iceland, 300,000 people speak Icelandic. There's no laws to protect these languages. Yet there's a very vivid culture, cinema, literature, everything works pretty well in those languages. In all those countries, they speak English. So basically, what I would like to say is that it comes to having self-respect, self-esteem, and that is what lacks in France. People don't trust themselves, and they don't trust their neighbors. So they have to get this. They have to get.
And that's new, or that's a
no. That's the reason why people don't trust politicians.
But what's really the biggest change in those?
Well, the change is that the world has become smaller, and a lot of French people nowadays speak English. Sorry, and they travel all around the world. I mean, look at Silicon Valley. 60,000 French people are working in Silicon Valley nowadays. The country has huge benefits. It's probably the best country in the world if you look at it objectively, to the infrastructure, geography, education, you name it. Yet the French, they are not able to make something out of it, and that's completely due to the system, because everything is locked and people simply don't trust themselves.
A campaign strategist in this election, what works best? Telling you that France is in a terrible state and I can make France great again? Or what Stéphane just said, that this is a great country, let's make the most of it?
This is basically speaking what Emmanuel Macron is saying, that we should get back self-confidence in ourselves. We should be proud to be French, but in a global world, we should not be afraid of the global world. And there is no contradiction between identity to be French and to be open to the rest of the world. But we can see that any time that we go in that direction, immediately you have counter-argument of people that are saying, no, it is precisely because the world is open that we should reaffirm.
Because people are afraid. And
yes, absolutely.
As long as you are afraid.
And you said the right word, which is it's a question of trust.
Yeah. All right, the conversation is not over. Bruno Cotresse, Majid Messaouden, Frédéric Becbédé, and Stéphane de Vries. It is time now for Media Watch. James Green, we got a lot of reactions on the hashtag F24Debate. I'll read just one from you, from one viewer, Richard. Huge boost for Macron. Bayrou's endorsement could have gone to Fillon. This is a significant moment in the fight against Le Pen. It's all couched as the fight against Le Pen.
Of course, it certainly boosts Emmanuel Macron's standing against François Fillon. Lots of coverage online about this, François. But we can see, if we go back over the last couple of weeks and months, that the criticisms that François Bayrou made of François Fillon of being under the influence of powerful money, if you like, with the power of money, etc. He made the same criticisms of Emmanuel Macron at one particular point. François Bayrou here saying that Macron was the candidate of the forces of money.
So he's a former Rothschild banker.
That's right. So he was making the same criticisms of the two candidates, if you like. So I guess he came down on the side of the candidate who might be slightly less under the influence of money, because clearly he did seem to think that they were both influenced at one point. This is one tweet that I thought was somewhat funny, imagining what Bayrou may have said today. I'll be dumped by the first round, so let's try to impose a few things on the potential winner of the second round and see. I guess that pretty much sums it up, because for the last three times he tried, he did get knocked out in the first round. And he has, this time round, I suppose, tried to, according to this headline in Le Parisien, impose conditions on Emmanuel Macron as an alternative to maintaining his own candidacy. So I think that pretty much sums it up. They've been, what would you say, blended here by Guillaume Tessé, who is a well-known French Twitter account.
About that.
So this is perhaps the next French president. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Or their love child.
Right, indeed. even more disturbing. This headline here in the Journal du Dimanche sums up the rather complex journey that he has taken to this particular
François,
endorsement.
First a candidate the last time his name was not on the ballot was 22 years ago. So he is a mainstay, even though he's just education minister of French politics.
That's right. And a centrist candidate, and as you were saying earlier, centrist in France generally means centre-right. So everybody would have expected last time out that he would have supported the right-wing Sarkozy candidacy. He didn't, which a lot of right-wing voters saw as utter treachery to his broader political family. And this, I suppose, will be seen as being in the same vein, as sort of a treacherous act against the political right. But that's, I suppose, if you're talking about loyalty to political parties, others would argue that this is a loyalty to certain political ideas that took precedence. The markets apparently appreciated that. Whether or not François Bayrou would care is hard to say. But this article in the Huffington Post points out that essentially anything that would seem to distance the spectre of a Marine Le Pen presidency is seen as reassuring when it comes to the markets right
James
now.
Creedon, I know we're running short on time, and you've been eyeing a website that is calling for another candidate for president.
I can't quite believe that it's serious, but this domain name does exist. Obama2017.fr. He is available. He's seen to be experienced.
Right.
But he doesn't speak a word
I don't
of
think he
French.
speaks French, and I don't think he has French citizenship. So I'm not sure if they took into account
Technicalities, right?
But people are putting up posters. I mean, that this is actually a real thing. I think #WTF probably says it best, don't you think?
Okay.
But anyway, there you go. He's apparently a better candidate than some in the eyes of whoever is behind that campaign.
All right, 2 months to go, still more surprises. Many thanks, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.